When we picture the Wild West, we often think of white hats, dusty saloons, and gun-slinging outlaws. But what history rarely shows us is that 1 in 4 cowboys were black. They rode the same trails, tamed the same horses, and helped build the legends of the American frontier, yet their stories were pushed to the margins. In this video, we're uncovering the Black Cowboys who shaped the West, the real men and women whose grit, skill, and courage helped define an era. And trust me, once you learn their stories, you'll never see the Old West the same way again. Before we dive in, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the bell. Because history isn't just what's been told, it's what's been forgotten. The real numbers behind the myth. Let's start with the facts. Between 1866 and 1895, roughly 35,000 cowboys worked the cattle trails from Texas to Kansas. About 9,000 of them were black. That's more than a quarter of all cowboys during the peak of the cattle drive era. These weren't isolated cases or rare exceptions. Black cowboys were everywhere across the West, from Texas to Montana, from Arizona to the Dakotas. They worked alongside white, Mexican, and Native American cowboys on the same ranches, doing the same dangerous work for similar pay. In fact, the cattle trail was one of the few places in post-Civil War America where black men could find relatively equal treatment and fair wages. While the rest of the country was enforcing Jim Crow laws and segregation, the open range offered something different. Out there, what mattered was whether you could ride, rope, and handle cattle. Your skill determined your respect, not the color of your skin. From slavery to the saddle. Many black cowboys got their start during slavery. On Texas ranches, enslaved men were often assigned to work with livestock because it was considered too dirty and dangerous for white ranch owners to do themselves. These men became expert horsemen and cattle handlers out of necessity. When the Civil War ended in 1865, newly freed black men already had the skills that the booming cattle industry desperately needed. The great cattle drives were just beginning, and ranchers needed experienced workers who could handle months on the trail. Former slaves who knew how to work cattle found themselves in demand. Some even bought their own land and started their own ranches. The transition from slavery to cowboy life gave many black men their first taste of real freedom and economic opportunity. They could earn wages, own property, and build lives on their own terms. Legendary black cowboys you should know. Nat Love, also known as Deadwood Dick, was born into slavery in 1854. After the war, he headed west and became one of the most famous cowboys of his time. He won roping and shooting contests across the frontier and wrote an autobiography that became a bestseller. Then there was Bill Pickett, the inventor of bulldogging, a rodeo technique where you wrestle a steer to the ground by biting its lip. Yes, you read that right. Pickett became an international rodeo star and performed for kings and presidents. Bass Reeves deserves special mention. Born a slave, he became a deputy U.S. Marshal and one of the greatest lawmen in American history. Over his 32-year career, he arrested more than 3,000 criminals and killed 14 outlaws in self-defense. Some historians believe he was the real-life inspiration for the Lone Ranger. There was also Bo Zacard, who worked for legendary cattleman Charles Goodnight. Goodnight trusted Icard so completely that he put him in charge of large cattle drives worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. When Icard died, Goodnight erected a marker calling him the most skilled and trustworthy man I ever knew. The work was brutal and dangerous. Being a cowboy wasn't glamorous. It was brutal, exhausting, and often deadly work. Cowboys spent months on cattle drives, covering 15 miles a day in blazing heat, freezing cold, and violent storms. They dealt with stampedes that could kill you in seconds, crossed rivers that could sweep you away, and faced raids from outlaws and hostile groups. They worked 18-hour days, slept on the ground, ate beans and hardtack, and earned about $1 a day. Black cowboys did all of this while also dealing with racism that their white counterparts didn't face. In towns along the trail, they often couldn't eat at the same restaurants or sleep in the same hotels. Despite contributing equally to the success of cattle drives, they sometimes received lower pay or were passed over for promotions. But on the trail itself, competence mattered most. A black cowboy who could handle his horse and control cattle earned respect from his fellow workers, even if society at large refused to give it. How Hollywood erased them. So if black cowboys were such an important part of the Old West, why do so few people know about them today? The answer lies largely with Hollywood. When Western movies exploded in popularity in the early 1900s, filmmakers created a version of history that was almost entirely white. The heroes were white cowboys, rugged, noble, and brave, while Native Americans and Mexicans were cast as villains. Black people, if shown at all, were pushed to the sidelines as servants, entertainers, or comic relief. This wasn't just a coincidence or creative choice. It was deliberate. The film industry reflected the racist attitudes of its time and reinforced them for generations. By erasing black cowboys and other people of color from the Western story, Hollywood sold a comforting fantasy of white heroism and superiority. This narrow portrayal shaped how millions of Americans came to see the past, turning the real, diverse frontier into a myth built around whiteness. For decades, Western movies and TV shows repeated this false version of history. Generations grew up believing the Wild West was a place where only white men worked the land, tamed the frontier, and made history. Even now, many modern Westerns still follow that same pattern. The rare films that include black cowboys only highlight how unusual that representation remains. Modern recognition and rediscovery. Thankfully, historians, educators, and filmmakers are finally working to set the record straight. After decades of being left out of the popular image of the American West, the truth about black cowboys is finally being recognized and celebrated. Museums across the country, especially in the West, now feature exhibits highlighting their lives, contributions, and impact. Books, documentaries, and academic research are uncovering forgotten names and stories, giving these men and women the place in history they always deserved. Hollywood, too, has started to change. Movies like The Harder They Fall showcase black cowboys, not as side characters, but as heroes and leaders the way they truly were. Organizations such as the National Multicultural Western Heritage Museum in Fort Worth, Texas, are dedicated to preserving this legacy, educating the public, and celebrating the diversity that helped shape the frontier. Across the nation, rodeos celebrating black cowboy culture have become vibrant community events, connecting descendants with the traditions of their ancestors. Many families whose relatives once rode the trails or worked the ranches are proudly reclaiming those legacies and ensuring the next generation understands their roots. From trailblazers like Nat Love and Bass Reeves to countless unnamed ranch hands and riders, the black cowboys of the West left a legacy of strength, independence, and pride. Which of their stories inspired you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear how these forgotten heroes changed your view of the frontier. If you enjoyed this look into the untold history of the West, hit like, subscribe, and share this video with someone who loves true stories of resilience. Until next time, stay curious, stay proud, and never stop exploring the chapters of history that deserve to be seen.